In this podcast episode, Jefferson Fisher shares deep insights into the challenges and nuances of human communication, especially in difficult conversations and conflict. Drawing from his extensive experience as a trial lawyer and communication coach, he explores the roots of communication struggles, how emotions like anger and fear influence our interactions, and practical strategies for managing dialogues in personal and professional contexts. The discussion covers managing triggers, setting boundaries, handling passive aggression, delivering hard truths, and fostering assertiveness grounded in respect and emotional sovereignty. Jefferson emphasizes that effective communication rarely comes from formal teaching. Instead, it is often modeled during childhood. Unfortunately, many people grow up with poor examples, where conflict is equated with closeness, yelling is seen as the only way to be heard, or even physicality is used to assert dominance. Because of these inherited models, the ability to communicate calmly and constructively is underdeveloped. Moreover, real improvement only starts once someone actively practices these skills, moving beyond theory to embodied experience. The struggle with communication is not about lacking knowledge, but more about unlearning harmful patterns and cultivating courage to handle vulnerability. Conflict is daunting because it requires courage. Many mistake loudness and aggression for strength, but true strength lies in calmly navigating disagreement with the confidence that the conversation will have an end and resolution. Vulnerability, especially for men, is often shunned, although it is essential for deeper connection. Behind anger and defensiveness frequently lies fear, the fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of rejection, and fear of emotional exposure. This fear often manifests as anger, because anger is easier to display and masks more vulnerable feelings like sadness or grief. Losing control during conversations is often the default because it requires no effort. Yelling or quick defensiveness is neurologically simpler due to the fight-or-flight mechanism hardwired into us. When confronted with disagreement, our bodies respond as if to physical danger, triggering dilated pupils, clenched jaws, and held breath, all physiological signs of readiness to defend. This explains why facts alone seldom change minds. Emotions hold far greater sway. People interpret challenges to their beliefs as existential threats to their identity, invoking automatic emotional defenses. The human nervous system struggles to differentiate between literal physical threats and social threats, such as perceived offenses or challenges to autonomy. This overlap explains the intensity of emotional reactivity in conversations. Physical responses mirror those prepared for survival: clenched fists, breath holding, narrowed attention, all of which fuel aggressive or defensive behaviors. Even simple text messages like, "We need to talk," can provoke anxiety because of the uncertainty and anticipation they create, activating our brain's threat response. Opening a difficult conversation with vague phrases like, "We need to talk," creates a vacuum filled by speculation and fear. Jefferson critiques common conversational pitfalls, such as failing to bury the lead or starting with context that prolongs uncertainty rather than clarity. Passive or cryptic replies, like a single K in response, can feel more antagonistic than outright hostility because they convey dismissiveness and undermine connection. Clarity up front, honest labeling of difficult subjects, and signaling resilience and teamwork help minimize anxiety and foster openness. One powerful example Jefferson discusses is a viral moment between MMA fighters Theo Vaughn and Sean Strickland, illustrating space holding. Theo's ability to just sit alongside a distressed Sean without pushing for solutions or minimizing feelings exemplifies the courage and emotional presence needed in tough conversations. This approach acknowledges pain and gives room for processing without rushing or judgment. Jefferson highlights how physical cues like clasped hands or body positioning reveal attempts to regain control and self-regulate. Creating safe emotional space is often more effective than rushing to fix or respond. Jefferson shares phrases that demonstrate emotional capacity and reassurance, such as, "Your emotions aren't too big for me," or "My love for you is big enough to handle this." These affirmations counter the fear many carry that expressing vulnerability will be too much for others to bear. In relationships, especially with children or partners, explicitly stating emotional support allows safer exploration of feelings without fear of rejection. This validation helps prevent feelings of isolation and encourages authentic sharing by reinforcing the safety of the relationship. When conversations start to escalate, Jefferson emphasizes the necessity of slowing the pace to avoid loss of control. Techniques include consciously using breath as the first word to regain composure and taking intentional pauses before responding. Timing is crucial. Attempting hard conversations during high-stress moments or busy family routines often produces poor outcomes. Requesting a break, timeout, or rescheduling difficult discussions to a calmer moment allows all parties to regulate emotions and approach dialogue more constructively. Writing down concerns and scheduling specific times to address them helps contain anxiety and provides clarity. Jefferson references classic advice about worry time to compartmentalize stress, which he adapts for conversations, suggesting people plan when and how they will approach important topics. This deliberate pacing reduces the pressure of having to reveal everything at once and also helps identify what the core issue is and what outcome is desired. Planning converts the unknown into a structured and manageable process. Anger often masks other deeper emotions, such as sadness, grief, or fear. It originally functioned as a protective mechanism in human evolutionary history to deter threats and establish boundaries, but is less effective in modern social contexts. Anger rarely leads to desired behavior change and can harden resistance in others. Jefferson compares anger to an emotional primer that obscures the underlying vulnerability. Recognizing that anger is a surface-level expression allows for gentler, more effective approaches to resolving conflicts. When faced with aggression, one common misstep is assuming the aggressor does not want understanding. Instead, Jefferson encourages adopting curiosity, wondering why the person is upset and what's driving their behavior. This mindset fosters emotional detachment and reduces the impulse to engage with matching aggression. Assertively setting clear boundaries involves stating what behavior is unacceptable, what will happen if it continues, and what one is willing to do if boundaries are crossed, while being prepared to follow through. Confidence and composure disarm escalation, placing control in the calm party's hands. Passive-aggressive behavior often stems from unmet childhood needs where direct expression was unsafe. These individuals expect others to mind read or solve their problems without confrontation. Jefferson recommends gently surfacing the unspoken needs by phrasing, "Sounds like there's more going on here," or "What's coming up for you?" inviting honesty without accusation. Deeply entrenched passive aggression, however, resists quick fixes and may require ongoing boundaries and transparency. Delivering difficult news is an unavoidable part of life that many fear due to anticipating the other person's pain. Jefferson advocates for kindness that means telling the truth plainly rather than softening it with insincere pleasantries. Beginning with the blunt reality, "This isn't a relationship I can continue in," or "I need to let you go," avoids confusion and builds trust. Setting aside dedicated time, avoiding distractions, and framing the conversation with mutual strength, "I know we can handle this," prepare both parties emotionally. This directness reduces uncertainty and the emotional suffering caused by ambiguous endings. Difficult conversations can feel like enduring a cold plunge, uncomfortable but ultimately clarifying. Jefferson stresses persistence past the initial shock, encouraging embracing discomfort instead of avoiding it. Emotional self-regulation is key, as is the ability to hold another's feelings without becoming overwhelmed or reactive. The conversation should not be rushed or derailed. Staying engaged, even when emotions rise, is critical for genuine resolution and growth. Empathy is a powerful skill, but carries the risk of absorbing others' emotional burdens. Jefferson encourages those with high emotional sensitivity to allow others to fully own their feelings rather than internalizing them. This means recognizing boundaries between others' experience and one's own capacity, enabling supportive presence without codependency. Clear communication about what one can hold emotional space for and gentle honesty about needs fosters healthy relational dynamics. Words like "I'm sorry, but," or qualifiers such as "I think" and "I believe" often undermine assertiveness by hedging statements. Replacing these with confident language improves clarity and impact. Over-explaining or providing excessive options can dilute the message, similar to the overwhelming menu at the Cheesecake Factory. Jefferson also points out how habitual apologies or excessive qualifiers weaken authority and make speakers seem uncertain, which can damage credibility in both casual and professional contexts. Assertiveness is defined as respecting both oneself and others, while aggressiveness, or being an asshole, stems from selfishness and lack of consideration. Both may appear similar in that boundaries are set firmly and unapologetically, but the intent and impact differentiate them. Assertiveness supports mutual respect and relationship health, whereas aggressive behavior damages connection by disregarding others' needs. Confidence aligns with calmness and measured expression rather than volume or dominance. Jefferson introduces the concept of vagal authority, which refers to whose nervous system sets the emotional tone within any interaction. Those who maintain calm, composed energy govern the atmosphere, while emotionally reactive individuals disrupt it. People with high thresholds for conflict, who respond thoughtfully and not impulsively, exert this informal authority by setting the thermostat for the room. This capacity is critical in conversations, especially in heightened conflict, to guide exchanges towards productive outcomes. Silence is a powerful response to insults, allowing the aggressor to reflect on their words. Jefferson advises letting negative remarks hang in the air for several seconds, then calmly asking the person to repeat themselves. Most people avoid restating insults when spotlighted, revealing the pettiness or impulsivity behind their words. Similarly, confronting "I was just joking" defenses with requests to be funnier, or straightforward feedback challenges passive-aggressive tendencies without escalating conflict. The podcast explores how modern culture's fixation on winning debates often arises from self-worth being tied to correctness. Nobody enters arguments expecting to be wrong. Thus, rigid attachment to one's point of view can lead to closed-mindedness and diminished connection. Prioritizing connection over correctness, appreciating different perspectives without agreeing, and maintaining humility can transform debates into opportunities for understanding rather than competition. Jefferson, drawing from legal experience, points out that detecting lies relies most on evidence rather than intuition. Liars tend to fear disbelief and often react disproportionately when challenged because they lack the inner peace that comes with truthfulness. They may question the accuser defensively or seek to justify inconsistencies. Honest people are more often composed and unaffected by disbelief, reinforcing the idea that confidence in truth surpasses all else. Repair after conflict requires ownership and acknowledgement of harm caused. Jefferson focuses on the importance of genuinely owning one's actions without shifting blame, affirming the other's feelings, and reinforcing commitment to the relationship as a team effort. Repair is ongoing work that demands humility and effort, not a one-off event. Relationships thrive not on absence of conflict, but on effective repair and growth through difficult conversations over time. Long-term partnerships demand consistent communication, especially as life adds complexity with children and responsibilities. Compatibility is not enough without communication skills because compounded stress amplifies misunderstandings. A good partner is someone who can tolerate the worst moments with grace and expects growth alongside you. Love requires sufficient emotional capacity to hold both good and bad moments without judgment or withdrawal. Jefferson's background as a trial lawyer uniquely informs his understanding of communication, layered with strategy, emotional control, and authenticity. In court, conveying credibility often hinges less on facts and more on composed presence, confident body language, and emotional regulation. Lawyers must navigate complex conversations within conversations, advocating passionately while projecting calmness to influence jurors and judges. These skills translate broadly to everyday communication, emphasizing how demeanor shapes perceived truth. One conversation rarely suffices to resolve complex issues. Jefferson advocates for framing difficult talks as ongoing dialogues rather than singular confrontations, reducing pressure and fostering openness. He highlights the power of having something to learn, not something to prove, as a mindset that invites perspective-seeking rather than entrenched positions. Genuine curiosity about another's viewpoint and tracing origins of beliefs builds understanding and connection beyond superficial agreement.